It's Elena Love here, and so I'm recording a couple things at the same time. We're doing a YouTube video, we're doing a Facebook Live, and we're also doing a podcast. Because if I'm going to do it, I may as well do it. That's what I figure. So I'm recording this today from Bend, Oregon, here in my upstairs office/studio, and I'm really glad to be back. And for those of you guys who've been wondering where I've been here all along. Caitlin and I have been working on a lot of projects, and the biggest one we've been working on is our Love Camp, which sounds, according to our marketing director, like a couples retreat, but it's not. It's basically a boot camp, a ketogenic plant-based boot camp, but we call it Love Camp because we want to love you into getting healthy and fit and amazing, instead of kicking you into getting healthy. So today I'm going to be covering a topic which is, a lot of people have questions about the ketogenic diet, and a lot of people ask me, how can you do keto on plant-based? Because they think, when they hear ketogenic, they think animal products. And so what I'm going to talk to you today is about the difference between plant-based ketogenic diet and a plant-based low-carb diet, because that word is also being floating around, and that's a trending thing now, because a lot of people kind of get discouraged about keto if they're doing what we call dirty keto. And so low-carb is kind of a trending thing right now, as far as, like, if you were to Google vegan low-carb, you would see a lot. And just to kind of give you a little bit of background on me, 22 years ago, I went raw vegan. And because I had health challenges like candida and eczema and low energy and irritability, and I weighed more than I wanted to weigh, all those things, I went on a low-carb vegan diet. And it was raw food as well. So I wasn't eating fruit. In fact, I went for a whole year without eating one piece of fruit when I first went 100% raw. And I was able to heal my candida. And the reason I say without eating any fruit, I also mean I didn't eat maple syrup. I didn't eat agave. I didn't eat dates. I didn't eat anything that had a high carbohydrate index or a high glycemic index, which is another way of measuring how sweet a food is by its glycemic index. But I feel like the glycemic index is kind of not as accurate as we would like it to be, because everybody reacts differently. In fact, my sister is wearing a blood glucose monitor these days. She's been wearing a continuous one, so she can find out what happens when she eats fruit or when she eats certain foods. And things that you would think wouldn't spike her blood sugar, she's noticing do spike her blood sugar. Like there was a few things, just like certain fruits that she eats. She's like, an apple, like, wow, my blood sugar went way up. So all of us are different, is what I want to say, and each of us don't react the same to sugar. And when I say sugar, I mean all carbohydrates. All carbohydrates turn into sugar. What I hear people say a lot is, I don't eat sugar, but I love bread. I love white flour. I love white rice. I love beer. And so all of that is sugar. When I talk about sugar, what I mean is anything that turns into a sugar load on your pancreas. And when your pancreas has to respond to whatever you're eating, and especially in things like fruit juices, like, fruit is not the enemy, but when you separate the fruit from the fiber, it becomes very high glycemic. And what happens is your pancreas has to work a lot harder to process that sugar. It can cause an insulin spike and then a drop in insulin, which makes you feel sleepy and groggy. And that's kind of how I know for me, because I'm not constantly testing my blood sugar, how I know for me when a food is too high glycemic for me or too high of a carb is if I get super sleepy after I eat it. Potatoes are one of those foods. I call them sleeping foods. Fruit for me, like, I can eat berries, but apples, mangoes, any dried fruit make my blood sugar zoom way up and then drop. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about blood sugar today, but what I really want to focus on is the difference between ketogenic and low carb. So I'm going to be reading some notes so I don't miss anything. And so before I dive into that, I just want to mention a little bit more, because I started out by talking about our Love Camp that Caitlin and I have been working on. And that is going to kick off January 10th. And I want to invite all of you guys to join us. And after you've listened to me talk about the ketogenic diet and the low-carb diet today, and if you feel excited and inspired, we'll post a link on this video and on the podcast on how to sign up for that. And we are going to be, this is the last time we are offering it at this price. We've been offering it at a ridiculously low price of $2.99. And for what you get for a month, you get how to meditate, you get how to breathe, how to do all your biohacks like your cold plunges, your breathing, your meditation, your journaling, how to do vision boards, how to, like, all your shopping list, everything you need to know, all your recipes, all your carbohydrates, your macros, your fats, your carbohydrates counted. All of it is done for you, and so much more. Live coaching calls and Facebook community private group that we respond to on a regular basis more than once a day, and with a group of over 500 people on it. So lots of stuff. So this is the last time in January that you get it for this low price. In the spring camp, it's going to be going up to $4.99, which is still an amazing price, but you're getting it at $200 less for January. So just to remind you of that, and we'll put links at the end, but just head over to purejoyplanet.com and click on our online courses and you'll find it there. But anyway, I'm going to go into the difference between keto and low carb. So pretty much simply put, a ketogenic diet, or a keto diet, a lot of people call it, is low carb, but not all low carb diets are ketogenic. So one of the most common misconceptions is that a low carbohydrate diet equals a ketogenic diet. The primary goal on a keto diet is to help you get into what's called nutritional ketosis. And what that means is it's when you're testing your ketones in your body, and you can do that via, strips that you pee on, or you can do it via a little kit that you get and you just poke your finger and test your blood. And when you get your millimolars, they're called keto millimolars, to 0.5 or above, so it could be 0.5, it could be 1, it could be 1.52, all the way up. Usually we don't go above 3, but if you're like fasting for 5 days on water, you could go up to as high as 6. People get confused on what's ketosis and what's ketoacidosis. And I think now a lot more people are educated about the ketogenic diet, so they understand that it's not ketoacidosis. What ketoacidosis is when your ketones get so high that you actually get acid, and that cannot happen on a keto diet. That happens because someone's alkalinity is super out of balance and they get super acidic, and it has nothing to do with the diet I'm talking about today, which is a plant-based alkaline ketogenic diet. And there's all kinds of ketogenic diets out there. There's like a carnivore diet. There's a guy called, his last name is Saladino, and he talks about eating only meat and nothing else. And he feels healthy on that. I totally don't feel like that's a good diet because you're very acidic and your body cannot get alkaline, and you're probably going to get sick a lot more often. A lot of these people that I listen to, like maybe their podcasts or follow them, that are eating a lot of meat products on a ketogenic diet, I notice that sometimes they have a runny nose, or they're sick, or they say, oh, I've been out for 2 weeks because I've been sick. What I notice for me on an alkaline ketogenic diet, which means very high plant-based, lots of green foods, lots of green juices, things like that, is I don't get sick. And there's a lot of other reasons I don't get sick too. One of them is a mindset. It's a belief system that I don't get sick, and I think that's important. It also has to do with the things I do, like cold plunges, just keeping my body alkaline as much as possible, drinking lots of water, using a lot of superfoods, things like that, which we teach all about that in the plant-based love camp that we do in January. But anyway, I want to stay on track here with what the difference is. So basically, when you're on a ketogenic diet, you go into a metabolic state that occurs, and your body's basically using ketones for fuel. And a ketogenic diet is a high-fat diet, and the reason for that is fats turn into ketones. And the reason people lose weight on a ketogenic diet and on a low-carb diet is because, one, they've lowered their carbs, but two, they're burning fat for fuel. And so, especially on a ketogenic diet, though, more so than a low-carb diet. A low-carb diet, you're not necessarily getting into ketosis, but you're just keeping your carbohydrates low. On a ketogenic diet, you're keeping for me, I try and keep my what's called net carbohydrates below 35 a day. Some people go as low as 20 if they are getting things like seizures, or they're trying to heal their anxiety or depression or some kind of mental, even if they're feeling like, someone has Alzheimer's, or they're getting dementia, or they're just starting to lose memory or getting brain fog. Lower carb, like lower than 35 net carbs, can help. And it's different for all of us. I've met women here in Bend that used to come to my cafe when it was open that would say, I do better on 20 net carbs a day. And then for me, 20 net carbs was too low. I wasn't sleeping well at night. I was feeling just not quite, I wasn't feeling good on 20 net carbs. 35 seems to be my sweet spot. I fluctuate between 35 net carbs and 50 net carbs a day. And that seems to be a perfect balance for me. And then I pick 1 or 2 days a week, being that I am going through menopause. I don't want to keep my body in ketosis all the time. I want to fluctuate. And I used something called the Cronometer, and that's spelled Cronometer, Cronometer. And what you do is you put in everything you eat, and it tells you how many net carbs you ate in a day. Or you just come to our love camp and we count them for you, and we give you all the recipes and we tell you how much to eat, which makes your life a lot easier. So back to the ketogenic diet. So restricting carbs below 35 grams net carbs per day is usually all you need to do to enter into and sustain a state of ketosis. So in ketosis, your body doesn't have any carbs to burn for energy, so it switches over to burning fatty acids instead. For most people, that means keeping a total daily carb count between 20 and 50, like I mentioned, and paired with moderate protein intake. So let me talk a little bit about moderate protein intake, because a lot of people say, well, you need to eat animal products to get enough protein. And there's a big myth out there. And I mean, now you can just Google that stuff, and there's so many people talking about, like a new movie that's out called Game Changers, talking about how amazing these athletes are doing on a plant-based diet. So, but you do have to choose what's right for you, because I did 100% vegan, raw, and plant-based for 5 years, and then my body really started to crave a little more protein, and I started adding in some wild-caught salmon and some humanely raised pastured eggs, like from people I know in the community or people that I know are raising local chickens. So that was what I needed to do for me. But I still believe that 85 to 90% plant-based diet is super healing, super amazing, perfect. And some people do 100% and do great. Some people need to do a little bit higher animal product. Here in Bend, there's a lot of wild-caught venison and elk and things like that. So people can use those kind of things to use as protein. And each person needs to figure that out individually, what works for them. So a moderate protein would mean probably only around 45 grams of protein a day. And you can easily get that from sprouted nuts and seeds. You can easily get that from even things like greens have so much protein in them, especially when they're bioavailable. And what bioavailable means is that you're able to actually digest it and assimilate it into your body. And so a way that you can assimilate food better for some people is by drinking green juice, something like a celery and kale, and because kale has a lot of protein in it, parsley, some lemon juice in your green juice, and then your body is able to absorb that nutrition instantly into your bloodstream and get the protein from that. You can also do just sprouts, leafy greens. You can blend your food. I like to get my protein from plant-based protein powder, like a hemp protein. I like to just use hemp seeds, actually, because they're actually less expensive than buying a hemp protein powder. And all that is a fancy label for people to charge double. So I would say just buy fresh hemp seeds, blend that into your smoothies, or even blend it into your green juices or your coffee. If you're doing what's called a ketogenic or bulletproof coffee in the morning, you can add some protein powder into that. Sometimes I do that because I'm not as big of a smoothie drinker in the winter because it's cold. So there's a lot of ways, and we teach you all about this in the Love Camp, so I'm not going to go super deeply into like how you to get your protein. But one more food I'll mention is spirulina. Spirulina, because I mentioned bioavailability, what bioavailability is like something like spirulina is 90% absorbable by the body. They've tested it. Whereas meat protein or animal protein is only about 50 to 60% absorbable, and that's being generous. Sometimes it's less absorbable depending on how much we chew. So you're actually getting more protein from something like spirulina than you possibly could be from an animal product. And I've noticed for me, if I start craving animals and I want to stay vegan, like I've committed to myself to stay vegan till the end of the year, just for my own personal experiment. And so when I crave protein, like, oh, I really want eggs, I just go ahead and add 1 or 2 tablespoons of spirulina into my smoothie, or even in just to water, and just drink that down. And I'll notice the protein craving will go away. And you can also do that with sugar cravings. When you up your fat on a ketogenic diet, get it clear, Elena. When you up your fat, your carb cravings go away, your junk food cravings go away, because you're getting satisfied. So the best of all worlds is to combine green foods and fat, like a salad with lots of avocado or tons of olive oil or coconut oil in your coffee, with your medicinal mushrooms like lion's mane, which is a brain hug, and turkey tail, which Paul Stamets was able to heal his mother from breast cancer by giving her like 8 capsules of turkey tail a day. So these beautiful medicinal mushrooms are ways to heal your body as well. And I am giving you guys a wealth of information right now, and we actually unpack all of this in our 1-month course, because it's way too much for me to give to you in a podcast or on a Facebook Live. So back to my notes here. So what happens when we go into fat burning mode is our body uses our excess fat for fuel. So yes, we're taking in fat, and people say, well, if you're eating fat, how are you burning the fat? Well, it's a balance. So I actually believe, as someone who's going to be 55 in 2020, and I'm using my body really wisely by exercising regularly, not eating too much, finding my own balance, that I don't do super high fat anymore. When I first went keto, I needed to go high fat in order for my body to get into this mode of using fat for fuel. And then once I got into ketosis and I got my body burning fat as fuel, which I'm in all the time now, even when I carb up, because my body is now like, oh, I know what I'm doing. And I've been doing this since 2017. So we're going on 3 years now that I've been in like a deep ketogenic diet and ketone state. So once you get into that mode, you can kind of cut back on your fats. But we recommend like up to 115 grams a day for a woman my size. Like I'm about 130, 135. I'm 5'6", just to give you an idea. 115 not net, but 115 grams of fat a day, about 45 grams of protein a day, and between 35 and 50 net carbs. When I say net carbs, that means you're not counting the fiber. So like, let's say if I ate an avocado, there's a little bit of fiber in that. That is super low carb. I'd get like 2 net carbs from an avocado. Something like, let's say a zucchini, if I ate a whole zucchini, I might get 6 net carbs. It might be 10 total carbs, but there might be 4 grams of fiber, and I'm just making that up because I don't know off the top of my head. But does that make sense to you? Like when I eat whole plant-based foods, there's tons of fiber in it, so it's lowering my carbs. Don't be fooled by these bars that have tons of fiber, like inulin added in, and maybe it has 20 grams of carbs, but then they're saying, oh, it's only 6 net carbs because there's 15 grams of fiber. That's an enigma. That's not true. That's not something that would happen in nature. So you don't want to get fooled by these bars that people are selling to you, or these fake foods out there. You want to use whole, real, plant-based foods, which is what we teach. Using nuts and seeds and sprouting them, and using these medicinal mushrooms and these, vitamin green powders and these superfood powders and these hemp seeds and things like that. Let's see. So when you are on a ketogenic diet and you're not, can easily be answered by measuring your blood ketone levels. I mentioned that before, but I'll say it again. So are your ketone levels at 0.5 millimolars or higher after implementing the keto diet for a week or so? So that's something you can buy. There's something I bought called Keto Mojo, and we have all these links on the website and on the blog that we're going to post after we post this video, and it'll be on we'll link it also on the show notes for the podcast. But you can test your own blood ketones. So if it shows up as a 0, it means you're not in ketosis. If If it shows up as 0.5 or higher, it means you are in ketosis, so congratulations. Some of the things that can happen when you first get into ketosis is you might feel what's called the keto flu, which means, and this doesn't happen as much to my plant-based people and to my alkaline followers unless they've been eating a junk food diet. But if you've been vegan for a while, or you've been eating healthy for a while and you haven't been eating junk food and you haven't been eating white sugar or a lot of white potatoes or white rice or white bread, it's going to be a lot easier for you, the transition. But if you have been eating all those foods I just mentioned, then you want to just start by going low carb for the first week and then go keto maybe in the second or third week. Or you might want to start with going plant-based for a couple weeks and then go more into keto just to ease yourself in. But so measure those millimolars, and it gets really fun. It's called quantifying, and we love to quantify. We love to see how far we've run. We love to see if we're in ketosis. We love to see if this diet is making us drop pounds, or if our pants are fitting better, or if we just look leaner in the mirror, which all of those things have happened to me. Like I can actually see my 6-pack of abs because I'm on a ketogenic diet, and I can see much more muscle tone than I did when I wasn't on a ketogenic diet. Even though I was happy with my weight, I was just a little more soft. And so a lot of people do mention that to me, like, wow, how do you get so much muscle tone? Like, are you working out constantly? It's like, no, I just am burning fat for fuel, so I'm able to have more muscle tone. I probably have the same amount of muscle tone. It's just you can see the muscle because the layer of fat is not there as much. And yeah, I still work on it, especially in the winter. I tend to get a little more fat on me, and that's just the part of the cycles of life. We're leaner in the summer. Okay, so unfortunately, an equally precise definition of what the low-carb diet is not, it doesn't exist. Basically, people just say low carb is about 45 to 60% of your total daily calories. So that's something you can also count. And just, that's called LCHF, which stands for low carb, high fat. It's just not as quantifiable, but it's a really great place to start, just lowering your carbohydrates. So both low carb and keto diets are great for weight loss. So if you're trying to lose weight this holiday season, doesn't mean you have to go on a diet. It means when you're looking at that array of beautiful foods that your family created or that you're at a party or a potluck, go for the foods that are more high in protein and fat versus high in carbs. So if you're looking at a buffet and someone like me brought a macadamia nut cheese and flax crackers and some celery sticks, go for that stuff instead of going for, or if you're not vegan, you could go for the cheese platter, but don't go for the crackers and the bread, just go for the cheese and the celery, or like the meat platter or whatever. Like I'm not dogmatic. I don't tell you what to eat. I just stay open to all of it and tell you to eat more alkaline foods so that you can feel healthy and amazing and beautiful into your 90s and 100s and beyond. And that's my goal for myself, to get to 125 or even 150, because technology is changing and we don't know what our future holds. I mean, I've got a whole 100 years still yet to live. So I'm taking super great care of this temple, and I honor it every day by giving it the exact food that it needs. And I love it so much, and it loves me back by letting me at 54 years old run up Pilot Butte this morning with 0 joint pain, feeling amazing, running past a bunch of people, not competing, but just feeling good in my body, feeling good about my skin tone, feeling good about everything about my life, my sleep. All of it is great on a ketogenic diet. And that's another thing that happens on a ketogenic diet, which I'll go into in a minute, but I want to talk a little bit more about the differences, because that was the name of this podcast and this YouTube and this Facebook Live, was the difference between low carb and keto. So low carb and high protein, so that's one kind of diet. And that means that's more of a carnivore diet, or what we call an omnivore diet. So they're eating a ton of meat. And I just really want to warn you about what's called dirty keto or dirty low carb, which means people are going to places like fast food joints and getting the meat patty and the lettuce and the tomato, but not eating the bun. Or they're just eating a lot of pork rinds and tons of cheese. And dairy, no matter how we look at it, whether you're vegan or not, dairy is mucus forming, and whether it's organic or not, it's going to cause, especially in the winter, a lot more colds. It causes a thicker mucus lining. People that aren't allergic to dairy can still get ear infections. They can still get chronic sinus infections. They can get puffiness around the eyes, and if your face is puffy, try getting rid of dairy, whether you're allergic or not, because people are like, oh, I'm not allergic, I'm fine. And I actually do have a friend that says she's fine on dairy, but she's constantly experiencing asthma. And I said, if you try going off dairy, because she puts it in her coffee, you will probably get rid of asthma. No, I'm fine with dairy. Like, so people really do lie to themselves when they don't want to give something up. And I was just having that conversation with someone. They interviewed me on a podcast, and we were talking, and I can link to that podcast as well. We were talking about cleaning up your diet, and I was like, some people would rather go to their grave early than change their diet. All of you guys listening are not those people, so congratulations. But there is a contingency of people out there that say, no, that's not me. I'm not allergic to gluten. In fact, give me double gluten, and they joke about it. And that's great. Do that. But you might not be as healthy as you want to be. If you're going to the chiropractor constantly and getting your neck adjusted, guess what? You're inflamed. No ways around that. You're inflamed. So you get to decide what you want to do. And that's why I'm here to educate you guys and tell you what I've learned over 22 plus years and what Caitlin has learned in her 10 years of being on an anti-inflammatory autoimmune diet, where she's healed her autoimmune, she's healed her Crohn's disease, she's healed her celiacs, not meaning that she can go back and eat gluten, but she's healed her body. And for her, it's a daily practice. And for me, it's a daily practice as well. Because guess what? Even if I eat sweet potatoes, sometimes my neck feels a little more inflamed in the morning and I can't turn it as well. So we're constantly just measuring our own body and seeing what our bodies need. And we're all so different. So the next kind of low-carb diet is called Atkins, which some people say, oh, isn't ketogenic just Atkins repackaged? Not our ketogenic diet, because we're not focusing on the animal products. We're doing plant-based, high alkaline, super high integrity, organic, quality, low-carb foods, okay? Paleo is another one, which paleo is very much in alignment with what we are teaching, which is no grains. And people go, no grains, how do you live without grains? Guess what? It's super easy. There's kelp noodles, there's zucchini noodles, there's mung bean noodles, there's we make up our own keto bread. We have flax crackers. We have our own cauliflower crackers. We have all kinds of amazing stuff that substitutes for grains. I do not miss grains at all. In fact, I was at a potluck last night and I'm seeing all these corn chips, and somebody made cornbread and they're like, oh, it's gluten-free. I'm like, I don't even want that stuff, because I know I'm going to get sleepy and want to go home in about 5 to 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, I want to go home now. Or the next morning I wake up and I'm like, oh, my neck hurts. I can't even move. Or my shoulder pain. Like, I have a shoulder injury that acts up with grains. So anyway, it's just you get to decide what works for you and how healthy you actually want to be. How vibrant do you want to be when you're 80? That's it. So paleo is the next one, and that really is basically more meat, more animal products in paleo, but it follows similar guidelines. They don't believe in grains. They do use things like fruit, though, more. Paleo are not as low carb. So they do kind of like adhere to a low carb diet, but you'll see bananas in a paleo recipe, or you'll see more fruits in a paleo recipe, because they feel like that's ancestral. That's something that our ancestors would have eaten. But guess what? Our ancestors did not have hybridized apples and hybridized bananas. Those apples were tiny little crab apples. The berries are probably something they would find, but wild strawberries are not very sweet, and wild blueberries are not as sweet, and they're smaller, and they're not like, plumped up. So remember that cultivated foods are going to be a lot sweeter, and our modern day, even sweet potatoes, like the tubers and roots that they would find were probably way less carby and more fibrous. And so it was a completely different time. So if you were to follow the true paleo diet, the true ancestral diet, you wouldn't be eating fruit, or you'd be eating like blackberries and raspberries when they're in season, not all year long. Cranberries. I love cranberries, and I do eat them this time of year because it's a holiday food and they're super low carb. Carnivore is another diet, and I mentioned that already, but that's basically they don't eat any plants, and they think that plants are bad for you. In fact, there's people out there saying that plants are a poison or toxic. But you got to balance everything. Like if you eat the same plants all day long, yeah, they might become, like I'll notice if I eat too much cauliflower, I get bloated, or if I eat too much salad, I'm like, okay, back off on that. I'm constantly recalibrating. It's not about finding this one perfect diet and sticking with it. It's finding something that you can follow, like plant-based keto might work great for you, and then one day you're like, I need to add a little salmon in, or I need to go and eat a sweet potato, or I need to like just pig out and binge and have my little treat for a day and then go back. So it's all about finding your balance. So the other low carb diet is called the low carb Mediterranean, and that is basically a Mediterranean diet that limits higher carb foods like whole grains, potatoes, and legumes. So beans are another food that we don't eat on the ketogenic diet because raw beans you never want to eat. People ask me that want to stay 100% raw, how do I eat raw beans? I say you don't. If you're raw, don't eat beans. Maybe you could sprout some lentils, and those would be okay to digest, but the rest of them will cause gut havoc, especially things like sprouted garbanzo beans. I learned that the hard way. I went to this restaurant on the East Coast years ago, and he was putting garbanzo beans in everything, and my friends were confiding in me, like the people I was teaching there, and they were saying, we stopped going there because we get so gassy. And so I talked to the owner, and I said, because he was asking me, I said, you got to take the garbanzo beans out of this menu because it's causing people to be in gastric distress, which means they're not just gassy, they're in pain. So don't eat raw beans. That's my advice for the day. But cooked beans are high carb and high protein, so a lot of vegans eat beans. And if you're listening now and you're vegan and you're like not low carb yet, and you're going, I'm not going to ever give up beans because what am I going to eat? Because a lot of people eat tempeh and tofu and beans for their protein, but there's a lot of other ways to get your protein on a plant-based ketogenic diet. So the Mediterranean diet does not include legumes either, if it's a low carb one. And the Mediterranean diet is similar to a regular low carb diet, but except that it emphasizes more fatty fish instead of red meat, and more extra virgin olive oil instead of animal fats like butter. So extra virgin olive oil is going to be your best friend on either a low carb or a ketogenic diet, because if you buy it, like I buy it from this company called Olive Press in California, and they only press twice a year, and I'm on their club, so I get 2 shipments a year of fresh pressed olive oil, and it's so good for you. It's good for your brain, and I haven't even gotten into that about like the benefits of a ketogenic or a low carb diet, and I'll do that in just a second, but I want to finish this thought here. So there's another thing called Whole30, which can be considered low carb because they let you eat legumes and beans and fruits and juices and animal protein, but they have you giving up sugar of all kinds. And they have you give up anything that's not a whole food. So that can be a really great way to start, is on something like a Whole30. If you feel great on that, then you can kind of jump into a low carb or ketogenic diet. I don't have any attachment to how you do it. Just get in there, get started, and this time of year is a great time to get started on this because this is when people tend to put on the weight. So why not get started now instead of waiting till January? Just like start thinking about this stuff. Okay, so another note I have here says, unlike the ups and downs you experience when your primary source of energy is glucose, and we call those people sugar burners, and it's not an insult. We're fat burners, they're sugar burners, which means you might be one of these people, so see if this resonates with you, that every 2 hours you need to eat again or your sugar drops. You get what's called hangry. You get irritable. You get super hungry and you can't focus. So that's called a sugar burner. And there's nothing wrong with being a sugar burner if that's where you decide you want to live. A lot of athletes tend to be sugar burners because they're running and they're eating and they're learning how to eat while they're running if they're doing long distance. But we find that, like for me, I can eat fat for fuel, and then I don't have my first meal of the day till 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and all I have the whole morning is either a coffee or a tea that I've blended with coconut oil, or what's called MCT oil, which is a more highly processed form of coconut oil, but it feeds the brain because there's more what's called octane 8 in MCT oil. If you get the high octane MCT oil, there's different kinds. The cheap stuff is not going to be focused on the octane 8, but there's some, like the Bulletproof one has one, and there's a few companies, if you look for it, it's called octane 8, and that's going to feed your brain, but it is more highly processed. So I kind of switch back and forth between coconut oil or MCT oil in my coffee, and I blend that in with my medicinal mushrooms, and that's all I have. I have it right here for my morning until I wake up at 6 every day. I set my alarm now in the winter because it's so dark, and I have that till 2 in the afternoon. So I'm really kind of fasted because I'm not putting any form of carbohydrates or fiber or anything in, and the fat just keeps me in fat burning mode, which I love. And the reason I do it is because I'm going to go into this now, is my brain lights up. Like I feel amazing on a ketogenic diet. Not only do I feel like my brain works better, like I can remember things, remember people's names, things just come to me more quickly. I'm not like, and I also find that my eyesight works better. Like I noticed, so when was it? I had French fries, I have to admit. Elena's confession, I had French fries. And it was after a hard weekend. It was last weekend. I had done something called combo, which I actually did this weekend as well. And I'm going to save that for another podcast or another Facebook Live. Maybe I'll talk about a little bit about like hallucinogenics and mind expansion and my combo, which is not a hallucinogenic. But I did that this weekend, which was cleansing. And it's really purging. Like you actually physically purge, like vomit water, which is kind of crazy, but you get a lot of stuff out of you, especially people that have had chemo. I guess this vomit comes out as like looking pink and purple. Crazy stuff. People have all kinds of amazing healing things, including anxiety, depression. It completely resets your body. Why did I do it? Because my friend Amara and her husband Dreamer lead it, and they're here in Bend. And Amara just said one thing that just really clicked in, which is the whole body reset. She goes, I never get sick, which I don't either, but I'm like, well, I'm just going to do this for the winter so I don't even have to think about getting sick. I can stop taking oregano oil all the time. And she also said something about candida and it healing your body from yeast, mold, and fungus on a cellular level. And that's something I've struggled with my entire life, even being on a low-carb diet. If I eat even like something small to carb up, I'll notice like that I start to itch a little bit. So I did this to kind of reset. Anyway, so that was last weekend and this past weekend. So I've done it like 3 times now. But anyway, long story short, I decided I want to have French fries because I had done this deep purge and this deep cleanse and my body was just like, oh. And I'm like, I'm going to have fries. I don't care. I was out. It was cold. I was hungry. And so why I'm bringing that up is because the next day my eyesight was super blurry. I was trying to read like small words, which I can totally read like in front of me now. I can see that Carla Felix is watching. Hi, Carla. Anyway, I could see that my body was definitely reacting to this gross fried oil and these high carbs. So the ketogenic diet keeps my eyesight good. Like I rarely use readers. I have them here. And if the print is like, if I've got like, let's say a supplement bottle, those things are crazy small. Even people with like perfect eyesight or like putting it in the sunlight or trying to shine a light on it, unless you're like 15 years old. But anyway, so I noticed that I don't use my readers at all or very, very few times on a ketogenic diet. And for someone who's 54, most of us are at that age are wearing readers because it's like your eyesight just starts to deteriorate. So I'm really proud of that. And I'm proud of how my brain works. And my mom died of Alzheimer's. You know, Alzheimer's, I would say, effects. You know, that was just, she had it and then it kind of just takes over your body and all your functions stop functioning. Anyway, so that's called the ApoE4 gene. So that's in my history. So that's something me and my sister both are really on top of. She also does a ketogenic diet. And she's noticed huge changes for her. Like she had gut stuff that she was noticing, like, you know, when she would run, she'd get diarrhea or things like that would happen. And she was able to heal her gut completely by going off grains and by going on a low-carb diet. And maybe she's not constantly in ketosis, but she keeps on a really low-carb diet. And it's just fun to play around with. Like there's going to be times we're not in ketosis. There's going to be times we are in ketosis. But it's just something that you want to kind of just focus on. If you were to ask me what's better, because this whole topic today was about low-carb versus ketogenic, I would say that the ketogenic diet is better. But just to be careful, because there's going to be a lot of people out there preaching a ketogenic diet. They're going to be trying to make money off of the ketogenic diet without actually really understanding it. And one thing I can say about Caitlin and I as we walk our talk, we live this. We've been living it. I've been living it for 22 years. She's been living it for 10 plus years. We live eating an organic diet, eating a high plant-based diet. I don't eat 100% plant-based anymore. I'm going to be honest. I don't title myself as a vegan anymore. Am I eating a vegan diet at the moment? Yes. Am I a vegan? No, because I don't like dogma. I don't like boxes. I want to just be a person. I'm alive on the planet. And guess what? That takes me out of judgment. I was at a potluck last night that was what I would call a mainstream potluck, and my friend Paige and I were kind of in shock because we were like looking around going, oh my gosh, every dish was like pasta, bread, more, like everything was sugar and carbs. And I started to go into judgment, and then I was talking to another person that was there that I knew, and I was like, oh, I'm going to catch myself right now, like I'm going to walk out of this room, enjoy the cauliflower that Paige brought, and then like not think about it, because I don't want to be that person judging. I don't want to sit there watching someone eating meat and judging them, because we're not going to heal the planet that way. If we want world peace, Why are we judging each other what we're eating? I mean, it's ridiculous. If you feel good on a high carb diet, go. If you're a marathoner or an athlete and that's like your thing and you're super into it, eat it. But I'm here to teach people that want to lose weight or they want to just feel better as far as like not feeling like they need to eat every 2 hours, not getting hangry. I mean, when I was in my 20s and 30s and I was married, my husband would freak out when he knew my blood sugar was getting low. Let's stop and get you some cheese, or let's stop and get you some food, because I would get really bitchy. And like, I don't want to be that person. So that's changed for me. Like, I love it because now I like, and also because I'm a meditator, but I'll sit back and just chill and like watch myself, like internal dialogue, and be like, like laugh at maybe a thought. But I'm not as reactive as I used to be. Like, things can break, or like I live with 2 other people and there's things happening in the house all the time, and I'm like, whatever. Yeah, bring 10 people over. I don't care. I used to be like, I need my space. And I'm just so much more chill. And I know that has to do with the fact that I'm in ketosis. And it also has to do with the fact that I'm a meditator. And it also has to do with the fact that I've been expanding my mind and really wanting to be the best possible person on this planet that I can be. And the way that I do that is to keep continually check in and be an observer of myself. So I want that for you too. If you want to be a person who can be high energy and have lots of fun and have a beautiful life and create the exact life that you want, start with cleaning out your body and then move into other modalities like meditation and exercise. But I would say the best way to start is to go on a low carb diet. And then, if you want to be 100% plant-based or vegan or whatever you want to title yourself, I don't care. Do that. If you want to do a flexitarian diet, which is mostly plants, throw in a little wild-caught salmon or a little bit of elk if you live in Bend, or some venison or whatever works for you. I would stay away from grass-fed beef. If it's grass-finished, that's different, which means that it stayed on the farm the whole time, and you want to really look into that. But even small amounts, because red meat can raise your ketone levels as well, because it just naturally does. So anyway, but just stay with plants for now and join our love camp in January. I want to really invite all of you guys to join that. And remember that if you do it now, that you're going to really get a lower price than you will if you wait till spring. And sign up in January or in December, because we're still offering it at the best price. So if you basically, I'm going to read it because then I want to make sure that you get all the information. But if you want your hand held and to really know how to get yourself into this beneficial fat burning state, you have to join us in January. We basically walk you through the entire month of eating high greens, no sugar, elimination style diet with amazing recipes. So elimination style diet means if you've been wanting to get rid of gluten, or you've been wanting to know how your body does without grains, a lot of the allergen foods are not in our program. So this is an elimination diet just because we don't include them, like beans and stuff. So then you can see for a month how your body feels. And a lot of our love campers, like, they rave about our recipes and they rave about how they feel. One person, I'll never forget, this woman was in her 60s and she said she hadn't been able to really run at all. Like, her joints hurt. By the end of the love camp, I think she was only in the 2nd or 3rd week, she was like, I ran up the driveway today. Like, she's running again. And all it had to do with is this anti-inflammatory program that we put her on and the elimination diet. And it's easy because it tastes so good. And we do, so if you use the discount code FB Live, you get 15% off just for tuning into Facebook Live today. And that means it's probably going to go to people that are listening to my podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, because I'm saying this here. But use FB Live as a code and you get 15% off when you go on. And Caitlin will put the links with this video after it's been filmed. And this is the last time we'll be offering this revolutionary love camp coaching program at this discounted price. And the price goes up in spring of 2020, as I said before. But we're going to also be adding, this time even, and in spring, we're going to be adding in more coaching, more experts, more tools for you to be supported on your unique health journey. And the Pure Joy approach to eating and living is transforming lives, and we want to help you too. And so if you've been waiting to join us, don't wait anymore. Sign up for January. And what I want to say is right now we're about to go into Christmas. it's kind of scary for some people. Christmas and New Year's are a time when people eat a lot of food. So just get yourself set up now and know that if you are going to have your indulgences, which, you know, you can choose to do that, you've got something set up and waiting for you in January so that you can like, okay, I'm going to get started. And if you're someone who's a repeat love camper, or you're already in a really healthy mode and you don't eat sugar, then start now. Go on our website, click on the recipes button, take our free juicing course, get started. I think we're offering a 3-day it's like a recipe. Gosh, I wish I had the exact details, but Caitlin and I decided to offer you guys like a 3-day challenge, and you're going to do a recipe a day, because that's enough. You don't have to make 10 recipes a day, and then you post it on Facebook, and then we pick a winner who gets the love one, who gets, they don't get a free love count, but they get a prize. So, and Caitlin knows what that prize is. But anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I'm just going to see if there's any questions I can answer here on my phone. There's a lot of comments. So, hi, Ashley. I want to say hi to Kelly Anderson. She says thank you. Hi, Simone. Hi, Karen. Diana says she agrees that this program is life-changing. Yay. And let's see. Caitlin put a link. If you look at the comments, she put a link to our podcast, which is Pure Joy Podcast. So check me out there. I've got lots of fun. Like, we try and educate you guys in as many ways as we can. And the reason I do that is because it's hard for me to explain everything to every new person. But I've got 35 episodes already recorded in podcasts that you can go back and listen to and find out lots more info. And it's great to do while you're driving or getting ready or, wandering around your house. Hi, Liz. How is that called? Combo? It's spelled with a K. Kambo. And Amara Dreamer, if you're here in Bend, she leads it. But you could even fly to Bend and do it. I'm sure there's people everywhere that do it. And I will do an episode on Combo. Hi, Blessing. Blessing had a birthday yesterday. And Blessing is a fellow love camper. She's taken our courses before. And Liz says love, 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 and love the camps. And Liz is now working for us, and she caters our live camps. We do live love camps. There's going to be one in Sedona and one in Mount Shasta this year. There's an all-women's one in Mount Shasta in July, and a co-ed one, men and women, in May in Sedona. So come join us for those. And then Anna is watching. And so if that was everybody that commented, I want to thank you guys for joining today, and I love you so much. So why don't you do this? Since you're on the page watching, go ahead and put in the comments what you'd like to see me talk about. I'm doing weekly Facebook Lives. My goal is to do them on Fridays, but if I don't get to them on Friday, I get to them on Monday, because sometimes Fridays get busy. But we used to call it Facebook Friday. And so that's my goal, for me to get on live every Friday. And if it's not me, it's Caitlin. And we love you guys so much. And really, both Caitlin and I are here to serve. Like, my life purpose is to be in service, and I'm living my dream life because I'm living in the perfect place in the world for me. I'm living in the perfect community and environment, and I've created all this intentionally, and I want to teach you guys how I've done it through not only our diet, but through our thoughts and what we're putting into our mind every day and what we're speaking, and also like what I'm journaling. Like last night before I went to bed, I just journaled all the words that I'm excited about, like love and romance and energy and vibrance and beauty and health and excitement and magic and miracles. And I like wrote them all in all caps and like, okay, good night. And like, so tools like that we can just teach you guys how to live your dream life. So keep coming back, keep watching. If you're interested, subscribe to the podcast or subscribe to this YouTube page or follow us here on the Facebook page, and we will keep coming to you with new topics. And you can ask for me to talk about any topics. I've actually been exploring magic mushrooms lately, and they're about to become legal in Oregon, which I'm really excited about. But the Johns Hopkins Institute has been healing people on magic mushrooms. So it's not like a drug that you take just for frolicking about, but for actual healing and going into that. So I actually have a podcast I just recorded that's not live yet, but I'm going to post that. So you guys can start to learn about that stuff too, because it's all about consciousness raising for 2020. I'm going to come back and talk more about how we can prepare for 2020. Caitlin and I are going to do a joint podcast and a joint Facebook Live on how to, like, our year wrap up, like what we learned in 2019 and how to like get prepared for 2020. So I want to say that I love you guys. I'm here for you. Send us messages here on this page, which is the Pure Joy Planet Facebook page. If you're watching on my personal page, find that link and click over. It's called Elena Loves Pure Joy Planet. Just type that in and follow us there, because you get a lot more stuff on that page than you get on my personal page. And invite your friends to join us too, so you can have buddies doing this with you. Love you. Have a great week, all of you. Oh, actually, one more thing I wanted to do. If you're still watching, I wanted to do a card. I'm super into these angel oracle cards. I love them. And I have a bunch of decks around my house, and everybody that comes over. So my house is on a corner, and it's officially called Crystal Corner now. And we have all kinds of people that come over and hang out and play crystal bowls and hang out in the evening. Even when I go to bed, they're still down there playing around. I got this card. This is a group card, a group reading, Moving Towards the Light. Can you guys see that? And showing it on both screens. And so I'll read that. So anyway, it's Crystal Corner here. We love to pull angel cards. And I find that the cards really usually, it's called Moving Towards the Light. So it's number 32. It really reflects whatever's going on with you in that moment. And sometimes if I try and pick a new card, the same card falls out of the deck. It's hilarious. I'm like, okay, I'm not ready for a new message. So today our joint reading is called Moving Towards the Light, which I think is perfect. So each stage of our lives is a bridge to inner transformation. When we go through the stages of resistance and anger, we slow down our process and can feel stuck where we are. By trying to find the light in our challenges and looking at them from a more positive perspective, we move through them faster and evolve. Make an effort to embrace your current challenges by identifying what you can learn and move towards the light. And your mantra today is, I find a hidden blessing in each of my challenges. I am forever transforming, evolving, and progressing along my path. So progress along your path, my friends, and have a great week. I love you. Bye.